Hello and welcome to a very special edition of An Earful Podcast.
As some of you may know, this year, August 23rd to be exact, marked the 25th anniversary of Jeff Buckley's Grace. This album was a game changer for me and lots of other people, and it led me into a whole different universe of music and changed the way I listen to it.
Jeff only ever released this one album whilst he was still alive, but it speaks volumes when you see how much it has grown and became arguably one of the best albums of all time, and gone on to influence so many big artists that we listen to these days.
From the opening dreamy and flowing falsettos of Mojo Pin, to the beating sound of Eternal Life and the psychedelic vibes of Dream Brother, it's a hard album to label in one genre, which makes it every more unique and unforgettable in its own way.
So today's guest on this episode is former Jeff Buckley bassist Michael Grøndahl. We talk about the recording process of Grace, how the band came to be, and lots more.
Due to recording restrictions, I wasn't able to interview Michael myself. However, I was able to listen in on this conversation, and I really enjoyed this one. I'm sure you will too.
As always, you can check out our socials via Instagram, Facebook, YouTube and Twitter at An Earful Podcast. Don't forget you can also check us out on all of our digital platforms and check out all the previous episodes.
And welcome to Nothing Podcast.
So with the recording of Grace, you spent your time at the very reclusive Beersville Studios, which was this by a choice by the label, or was it a mutual decision made by all you guys to keep yourselves from the distractions of the city? And how do you feel it benefited all of you?
Well, I tell you, when I met Jeff, they had already scheduled Bearsville before I had connected with Jeff musically. So we had about 6 weeks to go before there was load-in, and the producer was going to be there, and they had allotted 6 weeks of basic tracks and throw in as much overdubs or whatever and little enhancements as possible. But they kind of went on him and his talent, and I don't know, it was weird for me at the beginning because I felt he was quite fluid and pretty sizable on his own with a guitar and a little reverb and certainly his voice. But, music is great in that way. You can interpret it in a lot of ways, and so adding a band would just do something else if it was approached in a way that respected the integrity of the music. And he liked our ideas, and we jammed a lot of just endless going over the same part again and again. And then Andy would kind of say, "So is it about 16 minutes long?" And we'd say, "Well, no, actually, it's supposed to be only the usual, 3 choruses, and then go out on a chorus." So he was there at the studio, and he would sit and then he was good at just cutting out a lot of stuff. Jeff intimidated me so much because he was so amazing. Yeah. So I didn't want to stay. I didn't have the experience to be like Andy and sort of say, "So is it going to be 16 minutes long?" And we need to cut this out, because I was just so in awe of the guy, and I really just saw him as the second coming of whatever, because I felt that at that time the grunge genre had run its course. There was no more that could be said about it, and there was the whole dope thing, and that really just kind of deflated the whole thing. So I really felt that Jeff to me represented this new change. So when he said to me he had 6 weeks to go to Bearsville, that was really exciting, and it really put us to the press in that we had to put on the horse blinders and say, this is what we're doing right now and nothing else matters. And they had the wisdom to put us in Bearsville, which is great because it's near New York, but you're pretty, reclusive, and it's still Woodstock, so you have some good food shops. But the basic thing is it's just surrounded by woods on top of a hill, by deer, and it was the fall, so you had lots of lovely colors. And, and it just seemed to work out, the timing. And as you probably learned out, so much of life is timing, and I just showed up at the right time. I was kind of insistent because I called once and he didn't get back to me, and then I called again, and then he called me back. So it kind of paid off.
Was you in college at the time when you met Jeff?
Oh no, I finished in 1990. So
oh, okay, yeah.
I was just searching the village and the village voice, the local rag, for what was good, and it was tough, I must have been to 10 to a dozen bands before I landed Jeff in that 2-year period, from when I graduated college in 90 and then met Jeff in March of 93.
Right.
And was the bands you were previously in before then sort of like in the same direction Jeff obviously played his music in, or were they completely like off-the-wall different types of bands of what you ended up in with Jeff?
Yeah, they were very different. They were a lot of them were quite common of the time. Either a very crisp guitar sound, like an REM kind of spindly, kind of guitar, strummy type of thing. Crisp folk pop, whatever you want to call it, or they were really, balls to the wall, hard rock,
Yeah.
And so when a voice like Jeff came out, it was just so amazing, there's always going to be the avant-garde. So yeah, I was in a band that had cello, trombone, and played something between Bob Dylan and Captain Beefheart. But it was just you got to go through those things, or I did. And as a bass player, you have to be versatile so much. But I felt I'd paid my dues so much, and funded demos that I didn't believe in, and just wanted to do something that I really liked, because I found they were a lot easier to learn, and they were a lot easier. I liked it. Of course, there may be a couple of numbers that maybe you wouldn't put on repeat, but
yeah.
All in all, this was really exciting material, and he gave me a 60-minute complete on both sides tape of him doing his song, just voice and guitar, and that that reverb again. But I listened to that a lot, and then I went on tour with the cello trombone band, and that was an experience. But it was nothing like Jeff Buckley, and there hasn't been anything like Jeff Buckley, and it's just it was just such great timing that I got to see him, and it was so kind of indirectly that I was introduced to him, that it's just so wondrous about it. And to meet people like Maine Faithful and all these the people he was loosely connected to, was just like, wow, this is really fun and great company, and which was a lot more than just like a bunch of, early 20-somethings who had no real life experience, except for academically, and basically, weren't. I didn't feel that far along. It's only now I feel I can do something like write a book or whatever. But I tried to set myself to song, and I couldn't really do it. I didn't really have anything to say in that way, and wasn't that enamored with my voice. But to hear a voice like Jeff's and the versatility, Strange Fruit, to Bob Dylan, to what have you, Elton John, it was all so magical, and looking back and respectful of those, what he called teachers. Those songs were like his teachers, he said. And then it was also forward-looking, and like he infamously said, the 60s was bullshit, 70s, the 80s, maybe the Smiths, and then,
apart from the Smiths.
it's all about now, and, you can't, you hold on to the past too tight, it'll strangle the future, and all that. So, it'll, and he was just so fresh, and now, and I heard things like Nusrat Fateh Khan, it was really exciting to just go off the map on stuff, and I was pretty much within the G7 of things, or whatever it is, up to the G8, and didn't know about a Sufi singer in Pakistan, or all this stuff that he fell in love with, and it became his teachers.
So, what was the recording process like for Grace? Obviously working with Andy Wallace, who were known for Nirvana's Nevermind, and loads more classic albums. And was there any experimentation in the studio when you was recording, or actually in the approaches to the writing? Yeah,
I mean, we got more self-conscious about that. We can't keep on playing these songs forever, so let's try to structure them. The preoccupation and the sort of obstacle was that while we were taking so long, we were trying to find, like, here's my part, and I'm sticking to it, and that's the end of the story, And it was hard won in the beginning to come up with stuff that was just like, this is stuff that I'm satisfied and I think works with the song, and Jeff would be satisfied. So that's why we played those verses ad infinitum, let's say 64 times, and we burned out Andy Wallace's ears quite a few times, but we needed to do that. We only had 6 weeks to get in there.
Yeah.
So, we wanted to come up with a cool arrangement, but the neat thing about being in Bearsville was that it had such a great sound, so you could hear what you were doing very distinctly, and it wasn't just I think Jeff had a mini disc at that time, or a cassette player, or anything that just is a lot of high end, and doesn't have the full range, and nothing like what Bearsville, which was classic to the real deal. And Andy ordered a bunch of other stuff like Avalon equipment for bass, I think, and then we ordered our own little things. But they were more or less the classic things, like I talked to Matt Ashton about Ampeg and or some new stuff, or newer stuff, SWR 8x8. But still, it was an Ampeg head, and but it was a hard call to ask for a full, 8x10 SVT2 or whatever, was SVT2 4? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That classic, setup, which is such a bitch to load in and out, and it costs a lot of money. So I tried to keep it just condensed, and we were playing a lot of cafes, so it seems a bit.
You wasn't taking the 8x10 to cafes.
Yeah, it's like, what are we gonna get? What are we into here? But we kept it, pretty site specific.
Yeah.
And respected the acoustics of each place.
Yeah.
In the beginning. So that was really nice, and they were very much. There was a variety of places. We played old theaters, old movie theaters, restaurants, cafes. It was all just to get ourselves going. We had a 2-week period, which was called the Podunk Tour, or as the lawyers said, the tertiary tour, which is just places like Rochester or whatever, just to get our feet wet with the audience.
Yeah.
But we knew what we were doing. I mean, we just needed to get ourselves friendly and loose with real people. So it was April or so, and Kurt Cobain had died, and so we were practicing a lot, and then we were doing gigs, and then we did this, sort of a secondary city tours.
Yeah.
And those were helpful, and we met our first groupies.
Yeah.
And, it was just funny, a place like Rochester or whatever. So I helped, but definitely we needed to hit all the places and pay our dues, so to speak. And I found a lot of the earlier to the mid recordings a lot more interesting. Some of the later stuff gets a little too sloshy and just slam bam. I don't know. Some of it works out, but we were just playing huge places, and we were stretching the equipment. So I don't know, to do a lot of Wine in a venue, 1,500 or so people, it's a little strange, because our music was more cafe music, if you want to call it that. So we almost instinctively started using our buzz boxes and stuff more.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it always really made the music pay off, but I didn't want to tour more than twice in each place. I thought after that, you got to come up with some new good. And they were really squeezing us, doing it 3 times over here and over there. And so they even wanted us to do it a 4th time. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Well, I bet it came as a big shock to yourself, like going from like just playing around like New York in different bands, and then suddenly you're recording this album, and then next minute you're on tour like all over the world. Right.
There was a period to kind of build up to it, so it wasn't too blinding, but it's not a natural place to be, standing in front of thousands of people with all these hot lights on you,
Yeah.
And I don't get off on attention. I love playing for people, but I just kind of wanted to be present and make music with a guy like Jeff.
Yeah.
And be able to play. To witness him sing Hallelujah so many times like he did. You know, it was just. It was like talent. Touring with a freak of nature, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's just something that was so unusual and one in a billion that you just have to. I just have to get as much as possible of this guy, you know.
Yeah.
And he really gave a lot from the beginning of the day, and we'd have to do radio, and then record store, and then the gig.
Yeah.
So that pushed him quite a lot. I think it would push anybody to do 3 things like that, and to make them all, a little bit special.
Yeah.
Takes a lot. So yeah, we used Indian drum instead of a full kit for the earlier shows, and then the full kit for later. And that was smart of Matt, so we didn't get burnt out. But I was amazed at Jeff that he of course he got pitchy at times, but when you're doing three things like that a day, you're bound to run into shit. As much chamomile and honey as you have, you're still gonna get some pitch issues, and so that you can hear on some of the live stuff. And but you know, his mother was in charge of it.
I think Jeff himself had the charisma and the charm to actually pull it off, though. So even if he did get a bit pitchy at times, he could just carry on with the show.
Yeah.
It's also the perk of it being live, isn't it? Because it's that unique experience of seeing someone live, that you've got your own version of it, that is not exactly off the record.
Exactly, and I thought that was a gift to not only us. We could feel the moment, but also give, Belfast or where have you, that unique experience and that impression, because life is moving, of course. And Jeff would do things like tune his guitar to the air conditioner when he toured alone, just so he can be in harmony with the place. And, yeah, really, he said that, and I believe him, because he has such a great ear that he could, first of all, be aware of that, and then make it happen, and just realize that was a factor of the show and how it went. So he was quite a mindful person,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know on the road, you guys seem to change it up a lot with the set lists, and Jeff, of course, throwing different covers here and there. But you also perform songs that were possibly intended to release, such as Vancouver, and more personal to yourself, Edna Fro, if I'm pronouncing it right.
Oh, yeah.
Which I believe you wrote and sang live yourself alongside Jeff. Was this a way of letting the creativity flow and just keeping the set list fresh and unique to each audience you played for?
Well, yeah. I didn't know how I felt about Edna Fro. It was just kind of something that came up through a bunch of ideas, and then I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if we did something that sort of gave Jeff a rest,
Yeah.
Because he's constant. He would oversing sometimes. I felt. Like an example would be if you hear "So Real," it just goes on and on too much, and he doesn't let the music just talk for itself, and then he goes into this Sting thing, and he's beautiful, yeah, I know, but he's a beautiful musician and singer, but I just wish he just had a little more reserve with respect to that.
Yeah.
But that's just me, and it's hard. How do you tell Coltrane or something, or Jimi Hendrix, can you not be so busy there? You just gotta let them be themselves. And I found with Jeff, the less I said to him about this or that, or any critical bend, the more I was taking away from the vibe, because he was miles ahead of me, and he just knew what he wanted.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, through watching countless videos of you guys performing, obviously me and Matty never had the opportunity to. Obviously, we weren't born then. It's noticeable that how tight you are as a band. As usual, Jeff usually stayed off into his own direction and improvised in some of the songs. And you guys always had to stay on point and kept up with the unpredictability of it. How did the band come into formation in the first place, and did you have all that clicked together originally?
Oh, okay. Well, basically I had seen Jeff play in March of '93, and yeah, we, if that's what you're asking, right?
Yeah.
And I had seen him solo and was blown away, and had it in my mind, and saw in the paper he was playing again. That was in March, so I saw him playing again, that he was playing again in June, and was even more impressed. He had grown even more, and the music had furthered itself. So he was, I could just feel there was room to grow, and then I admitted to him that I played bass, and because we talked at that second show, which is at the Fez, which was a restaurant in the basement of one of these downtown New York big stone buildings. But he did amazing that night, and he did the a cappella song. I think it was the Sun House song, with just pounding on the stage for rhythm, and then clapping and singing this old traditional called Johnny Lee, or I think the subtitle is "Be My Husband, Be My Wife."
Yeah,
something like that. It was just the theater of it and the performance. It was just wow. His attitude was on fire that night. It was something a bit, I'm not afraid to say it was pretty punk rock how he came onto the stage alone and just started doing this number alone and totally mesmerizing people, and then started with his music and all the covers and so forth. So I gave him my number, and then I called once, no answer, twice, and he called back, and we said, let's get together. And so we got together and played pool, and then we went up about 2 a.m. and played at a really low volume in his apartment on 12th Street, and then we seemed to get on. I played pretty simple, and it was pretty quiet, and he liked that. And he wasn't looking for like a Stanley Clarke or a Jaco Pastorius or something like that. He wanted people that he could form for himself. So, like Michael, Ty, he'd never been in a band, but he had good taste, you could tell, and he was teachable. He was moldable. If you took one of these guys that was more experienced and had their own shtick, their own thing, and they also had played with whoever, they may not be so adaptable, in the moment.
I get what you mean. They want a bit more out of it themselves.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, all right, I'm the real kingpin here, so I'm gonna show these youngins because there is that, unfortunately, that thing in music.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no coincidence that there aren't a lot of homosexuals in jazz. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Think about it, though, you know? It's just a fucking pretty, you know, a very, yeah, the attitude is just like, you know, it can be pretty unsympathetic.
Yeah.
You know? And like, yeah, come back when you know something, you know? And we actually wanted people that were just teachable, you know?
Yeah.
And could come up with something that was, that was unique. And that's what he was falling in love with. For me, he said, like, he reminded me, I mean, I reminded him of the bass player from Jane's Addiction, he said.
Yeah.
Because I come up with he said there aren't so many of us or something, that because we come up with parts that are kind of unconventional or it's just something like that. And I was like, wow, you know, because on 2 occasions I said to them, this was in the thick of the first 6 weeks before Bearsville.
Yeah.
I said, I can't do it. You guys, Matt is amazing. You know, he can play in 7/8 and all this stuff, and he's just fantastic, and you're fantastic. And here I am trying to bridge you guys. You know, I think of the bass as a bridge between the two. And, you know, it's like, how ridiculous is that? And he just, without a stutter, just said, no, you're the guy. And so, and that was twice I pulled that, you know.
Yeah.
And he said, no, you're the guy, you know. And there was no impatience or will you stop with that, you know. He just said, no, you know, let's just go practice, you know.
Yeah.
And that was such a gift, because it was pretty intimidating playing with those guys.
So during that time, is this when Dream Brother came into play? Like how you wrote that song?
Yeah, that was. I think it's been written a lot. That was the first time we gathered, and it was rather, you know, egalitarian of him just to say, all right, you know, I put out my 3 songs. How about you? What do you have? You know?
Yeah.
And so I just started with that, and I thought, oh, this is really lame, and can I even tell the timing? And,
yeah.
And then Jeff came in with that sinewy thing, and Jeff, Matt chimed in, and it just, we really connected on that deeply, and that was when Jeff sort of gave Matt the look, like, yeah, this is really clicking.
Yeah.
And that for those guys that confirmed it, I could just hear that this had aesthetic viability, and that it was like, you know, for me, making that record was just like, well, this music, whether it sells 1 copy or whatever, it needs to be heard. It just needs to be out there, you know? And that's how I felt, because, wow, what a great singer. Tremendous drummer. I got an idea or 2, and then Jeff would do these great overdubs and things. I was like, wow, what the hell? And just the diversity and the use of, non-Western type harmonies and so forth. strings and some of the vocal harmonies, that he, like the Beach Boys, made them into chords. And so he, I just felt this has to be recorded and preserved, and it was already in line. The people way ahead of me, so it was great that it was, given the support, and Jeff had total creative control. So we had the 6 weeks to do the 8 backing tracks.
Right.
And we started out with Last Goodbye, and it really wasn't until take 19 that we came up with something that we liked, because we were doing the snare on 2 and the and beat of 4.
Yeah.
Or rather, the low tom of the upstroke of the 4 beat, and it sounded like just small T, like if you like Pina Colada.
Yeah.
It's a terrible song from the 70s. But then we're like, just play it straight, and then it worked out, and then Jeff just told him to swing it a bit, and Matt was very vocal about what he should do, and he had the language very down pat. And as you know, the first real priority is to get the drums down.
Yeah.
And he put them down perfectly.
Well, that's one of my favourite tracks on the album. Sorry, the Last Goodbye, because from when you're listening to Mojo Pin and then going into Grace, like it's a nice break. Last Goodbye, especially when you come in with the bass line at the beginning as well.
Yeah, that's Jeff. It's a song that predates us.
Yeah.
That he had, and he had some demos from before, from the the Dungeon Sessions or something like that. Anyway, he had that from long ago. It just had a different bass line and maybe a few, well, of course, overdubs that was changed. But he was very happy with it, and he said, "Hey, yeah, I'm putting more bass." He called me in New Mexico, and said, "I'm putting more bass on this, and it really rocks." And I was like, "Really? Wow!" So they spent pretty much November, January, February, March doing the overdubbing and mixing, and also the two songs without the band. It went something like that, and then in April we got back together, and like I said, Kurt Cobain died, and then we rehearsed and found a second guitarist, and so on and so forth, and we did So Real. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself.
So Real is probably one of my favourites from the album. I think that Last Goodbye and Dream Brother is probably the three that I connotate with the album from when I first listened to it, and having such a big impact. What I'm interested in is, what was your favourite song to perform live? Was there a certain one that sounded different to you in comparison to when you recorded it originally, and kind of progressed and kind of became its own version when you played it live? Or is the one that threw out from recording to actually playing it live that you preferred?
They all grew, all the songs, but I felt the best song that sort of, if we had the chance just to keep Last Goodbye as it was on record, because I liked the tempo on that. we tended to play it a little bit too sped up, which happens live, as you know.
Yeah.
But they actually were doing it on purpose, and I thought, no, it's fine, because then they could do my my dub reggae whatever thing on the bass, and because I would have to pace it differently when it was done faster. But I just never felt like live it was, I don't know, as exciting as how Mojo Pin or Grace or Dream Brother or So Real. Those had more of a plasticity, and you could play with them and the arrangement more, whereas Last Goodbye was just very set and and that's why it was a good choice as the supposed single of the record, because it kind of is good in that certain way. It's not like a song that just should be fucked with too much.
Yeah.
I didn't think. I thought that we after 19 goes, after 19 takes, we really hit it, and that was like the version. Whereas some of the other songs maybe we hit earlier, and that was maybe because it left room for a lot of interpretation later on. I don't know, but at least with Last Goodbye, we felt okay. That was good the way it was. Playing Mojo Pin live was really such a thrill, and Grace, that really evolved arrangement-wise with his voice. I felt, and Lilac Wine, that became very interesting in the end because it almost became decrepit, and Jeff would start tuning his guitar down just randomly to just make that sort of connection with drunkenness. And that was interesting, yeah. But that was exciting to learn those songs and play them because, songs Nina Simone did. And just playing songs at that slower tempo that I personally didn't investigate as much as those guys. That was exciting,
Well, you could tell the album is so diverse within different genres, because I mean you get Dream Brother, which is it's like its own psychedelic track compared to when you go to Eternal
like
Life, which is a very heavier track.
Yeah, definitely. For me, it was kind of like the Tomorrow Never Knows of the record, if I can be so bold as to compare it to such a great record like Revolver. But I just wanted it to end on a kind of similar note. But it really didn't matter what I wanted. It just happened that way. And I was so glad that Jeff came up with the lyrics, because we had done the song and the arrangement and written it all together. And then Jeff, just without any shifting or throwing tracks around, like you can with Pro Tools, he just worked with the existing arrangement and made those vocals that he did, and I was really amazed. And then I knew the record was done.
Yeah.
With that, and I was so happy because, hey, I wrote a song, which was great to contribute to such a, what I felt was just at the very least a well done record.
Yeah.
But I kind of had a feeling it'd make some waves even on just like the indie scene, you know, it just somewhere it was gonna do something, because this was not music that I had heard around for years and years. People say 80s rock, but I don't really hear it.
Yeah.
So much, because a lot of 80s rock to me was MIDI and I don't know. Also some really good music, but just I don't know. It was more like electronic and computer.
Yeah,
and
very synth
want to go back. Yeah, we just wanted to go back to the basic analog. Like, there's still a lot to be said and still a lot of interesting things to say with your basic guitar, bass, drums, vocal lineup. And I thought, we can do it. We can work with horns or whatever, maybe down the line. But for now, let's, do what we can with this, because we have a lot we can say, and we worked well together. We definitely had chemistry.
Yeah, I definitely think that approach to the record enhanced it in a certain way. Like, if you take, for example, the recorded version of Hallelujah, just the reverb off the vocals, off Jeff's guitar, it really enhanced that track, which made it kind of hauntingly beautiful. I think that was the great thing about it, that there wasn't this complicated recording schedule to it. There wasn't overlaying in tracks. It was just literally voice and guitar, and then that suited it.
Exactly, yeah. And, I was very concerned in the beginning, because I thought, can we really add to this? This is already good, because I almost felt every song was Hallelujah, the way he did Grace on his own, the way he did Mojo Pin on his own. I thought, do we have anything to add to this? But I thought, well, certainly we can make it bigger, but with Hallelujah, I just felt like that was so, it was so obvious that, we shouldn't step anywhere near that.
Yeah.
And it was just so magical the way he would be able to play with it and work with different harmonies, and use his voice accordingly with each take. As you hear, like the video is different, and the record version and all that. Just so it was just really him at his most you can say comfortable self, in his comfort zone, because it's go where he wanted to go, and there was nobody telling him up or down, and he could just take it to where he needed to.
In regards to the track "Forget Her," was the decision made at the time to just keep it off the album until further notice? Was that a thing that you would discuss towards the end of the recording process?
Right. It just I felt I was pretty happy with it, at least my part and how it came together. But I was concerned that Jeff said it reminded him of an old girlfriend or whatever, and we thought maybe it's better a band like Aerosmith does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it has that kind of Aerosmith part that, the middle eight or the bridge, whatever, has that sort of almost Aerosmith sound. But, I just, well, ideally I wish that was dealt with separately and not put on later masters of the album. But what can I do? Just was what it was. But I think it was well done. I just think it was a betrayal on Jeff, and that he didn't want it to be. He didn't want to have to think about that girl or whatever, or just maybe he didn't think it was a very good recording, and he had a different standard. It was a lot different once he passed away because everything was put in a different light.
Yeah.
You know.
What's your opinion on all these like posthumous releases now? Then with You and I, and then Sony recently releasing a full back catalogue of like live recorded performances. Do you think that should stay behind closed doors, or do you think it's cool that all these new tracks are seeing the light again? Because I know we talked about previously on the phone with the track that he did with Elizabeth Fraser as well.
Yes, right. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that. Yeah, that was just unfortunate that it was put on such a poor format.
Yeah.
But it definitely shows what we were heading towards. You know, not necessarily that we were going to work with Liz Fraser, but just that regard for like good new wave stuff that was done in the 70s and 80s, and just that it let him. It was a great format or form for him to let his voice fly on, to fly about with, and to write lyrics that were engaging and said something about him and Liz in that case. Well, I don't know if it's specific, but it's definitely about love and self-realization and all that. But it is on that 4-track format, so it is what it is, and so I really like it, and I think it's I have a thing for lo-fi stuff. I'm not that like, but it's so lo-fi. I mean, listen to stuff on the White Album. It sounds, or Rubber Soul, it's not that professional and together, but it's fucking great, and it's a great experience, and it just does so much, and
goes back to like how Hallelujah is so simplistic but yet so soulful, whereas a lot of people these days go into the studio, record a song, and it just gets overproduced, and then they're just churning out the same music over and over again, and it just becomes to like feel not as soulful as it should be.
Well, no, I'm amazed the last 10 years how all because it's all buttons and programs and this and that. The sounds are generally the same.
Yeah.
And so they're just it's not like before where you had the great sound of Phil Woods, and then you had Charlie Parker, and you could hear the difference. This is just like, that's just a Yamaha whatever, I don't know, keyboards.
Yeah.
It's a Yamaha 384, and this is another band using a 384, and they don't sound that much different, and they're not produced that they all sound the same to me. With that dancehall, that really bad dancehall reggae kind of inflection or type of version to it. It just it's not all. I don't know. It's just not interesting to me, and it doesn't say much about the human spirit or soul, because it's so produced and done the same, like almost like cookie cutter.
Yeah, no, it's very predictable, and there's just no diversity about it.
Yeah. I'm trying to find new music, but it's difficult. I heard about this music, grime. I don't know.
Oh, grime music.
Yeah.
Are you into that?
I liked what I heard.
Yeah.
But I don't like I don't like people talking too much.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, rap suffers from that a lot of the time for me, and definitely gangster rap. I really liked what Frank Ocean did with White Lies or White Lines or whatever it was.
Oh yeah.
Too many rich kids, Daddy's Jaguar, whatever. I thought that was really cool and a great take on Elton John's Benny and the Jets. That's more my thing, trip hop and all that. But he played me some other grime that was pretty good. But I refuse to believe that there can't be new music that can come out at this day and age. That it all stops around the recession.
Yeah.
I don't know, something like that. But I know there's still good music going on, and there's young people, and of course they have that great inner intensity that they want to act upon, and it's beautiful, it's wild and natural, and it's like love, and it's about people coming together and making something together, and instead of, I don't know, whatever, stealing cars or something.
Yeah, no, it's very true.
That they're making something of value and doing it while they can before, whatever, they have families or just life gets involved.
Yeah.
Or life comes in the way. So, I'd like to think that there's always room for more new music, and that it's never that it never comes down to just regurgitation or just new fancy gear or whatever.
Yeah.
The new things can be said with the old format. Like what Bob Dylan has done all these years. That I can really admire, and or Tom Waits,
Yeah.
people like that. I just think that's great. I know they play behind characters. They're not like Joni Mitchell, who is herself and projecting all her feelings and everything, which is great. But Bob Dylan and Tom Waits are just about something else. They're about the theatricality and the whatever, making this music with this character, whatever. But my point is that I just think that it would be a shame to think that there's no more room for good new music. They were saying that in the 80s,
Yeah.
So of course it's not true. I just like to get out there and know where the good new music is, whether it's become so decentralized. You don't have or I don't have MTV or whatever to go and see what's what, or this magazine or that magazine. I just hear this or that from friends and figure, oh, okay, this is what's going on. But otherwise, I get very disappointed by radio and so forth. But
I think that's the way it should be, just through social and recommendations and people actually talking to each other. Like, that's how I came into Jeff Buckley, like, just through a friend.
Yeah.
And again, he just came in to be like one of my favourite bands.
And say on the plus side of these posthumous like releases to do with Jeff, it's opening up the possibility of a full new generation of discovering Jeff's music again. I know for you saying, Matty, that in terms of like obviously discovering Jeff's music was like mind blowing in terms of like being like a young musician and like moving into the songwriting and trying to develop that. Yeah. It was a key moment of expanding my knowledge in terms of songwriting. So that possibility again, now with it being the 25th anniversary of Grace, it could broaden a lot of horizons for many musicians.
Well, yeah, I like to think that he set a precedent and set the tone toward the new thing. That the people just being like, well, if you put the Beatles and the Velvet Underground together, we're like that. Well, what about, just you guys? And I like that he was just abandoning the whole genre thing and just doing good music, just to go back, your questions about all these re-release, new releases and taking old 4 tracks and stuff. Yeah, it's a bit. I think too much and taking advantage. It's a shame, of course, what happened with Jeff, and it's great that those new releases help keep people aware of, what's that? What the hell? But I feel like the way the music grew in the beginning is just how it should still grow, which was by word of mouth and by people finding out about it. So I don't feel there needs to be, his one-off on Everyday People by Sly Stone. I just think that it's opportunistic and too much, and I don't really understand it. I understood the live stuff for a couple times, just because the way Jeff would approach it was different every time, but not start putting out 4-track things. I mean, You and I, guitar version is a beautiful thing, but I don't think it should be a different release or anything like that. I think that, we did a lot of other work. I consider Sketches to be like a second record.
Yeah, definitely.
Because whether we liked it or not, it was where we were at that time. And so to make qualms about, this, that, there was, I don't think The Art of Blonde Girls is a great song, but I think that, that's where we were at. It was what we were doing, so what do you have to be afraid of, Yeah. Just let it out there, because we're living in a new age. Easily streamed and whatever. So, the more transparent, I think, usually the better. So, I really wasn't in favor of his mom seeing all this stuff, and then the literary stuff with putting out his journals, and it was just too much, Couldn't you think what your son would think, which is that he would be embarrassed? He already did that in his concerts and in his songs. So why take his raw poetry and then just put it out there? Jeff in his own words, His own words were the music he made, unless he was intent on making a poetry book with all his lyrics, then I think they should have left it alone. But his mom's his mom, so what can you do? So that was just to answer your question about all these new stuff.
So it's known that Jeff was a joker. Are there any funny Jeff stories from touring or in the studio?
Yeah, I mean, he always had such a great sense of humor, and to me, I was very taken by his ability to mimic and to like become the character, whether it was person or a cartoon.
Yeah.
He could really, morph himself into these things that often he had grown up with, like the wolf from those old Warner Brothers or whatever, Looney Tunes cartoons. You know, the one who always acts like, you know, really turned on when like a nice-looking girl goes by, or he's hungry, you know, and his teeth come out, and he could just, I don't know, he could just do that kind of thing, and you would know exactly what he was talking about. So I think I think when he was growing up, his family entertained themselves a lot with, you know, well, certainly playing music and listening to music, but also, you know, having fun and being able to imitate whatever popular or local figures there were. That was something he had such a great ear, you know, whether it came to composition or just you know, making fun of someone, taking the piss out of him. He was really talented that way. You know?
Yeah. Is there any moments when you was on tour as well where you was kind of like, wow, like I can't believe this is happening? Because I know there's the photo of Jeff and Paul McCartney, and there's one of the photos where he's looking at the camera, and you can just tell by his face he's kind of like, is this really happening?
Yeah, that was a good thing. I was so overwhelmed by that it was Paul McCartney, you know, that I just sort of shook his hand like a zombie.
Yeah.
You know, and then I just figured the best thing to do is just, that was the best part, and then sort of piss off, because I just knew that certainly Jeff had a lot to talk to him about, and I'm sure Paul McCartney had a few things he wanted to know, whatever it was, but just that they needed their space, and I would just sort of go off. But you know, other people like David Bowie and some other really good people that don't come to mind right away, but he just you know, Christy Hynde from the Pretenders, you know, people that he knew, and they were really interesting people, and they weren't just famous, and then, you know, they were also really interesting, and artists who had really a fine just vision or aesthetic of what they wanted, and you know, I felt like that was a common thread among people like Chrissy Hynde or McCartney. You know, they were really honing in on being very much its own, and then it would remain consistent, and of course grow a little bit over time. But I think he attracted that, and you know, like, I don't know, one of the guys from what was that guy who hung himself masturbating?
Michael Hutchence.
Yeah, in excess. You know, he came, and there wasn't much. I mean, Jeff, of course, was charming and obliging, but he didn't really. They didn't go on into the night, you know. It wasn't just Michael Hutchence. It was like also some of the other guys, and I'm sure they're sweet and all, but you know, I think he was really more, and I'm sure he wasn't dismissive or anything, but he wanted to, you know, part of his interest was into getting into this business was that
Yeah.
the people in it and people that he grew up with worshiping, and also the people that were up and coming that he really liked.
So I know Jeff was a big Smiths fan. Did Morrissey ever turn up to any of the shows out of curiosity?
I don't think so, but he seemed to know him for about as long as I knew him. What was it, 1984? I think he really related to music that had that original quality to it. So that, of course, was one of those bands that did that. They were really good at what they set out to do.
Yeah.
And
So, with Grace being 25 years old this year, does it feel like 25 years? Does it literally feel like 2 weeks ago you was recording? Or do you have that nostalgic sense to it now?
Well, it feels like some time has gone by, and it's had some time to mature and kind of like a wine, either go really good or not good, and he, it's, I guess it's about the same time. The hard thing is the whole trajectory or chronology of dealing with the loss and the death of him. That always seems strange, because you think 25 years, move on and all. And sure, I have in a lot of ways, but there'll always be this part of me that has this longing, in sense of like what could have materialized. So, in some senses, that's endless, and you can't put a date on it. But it's definitely been some time. And the real part was like the first 10 years. That was hard to sometimes put my head around it and be functional, because I just felt that was so good. And unfortunately, the bad thing was it spoiled my ability to just suit in with other things, which is, of course, what you do as a bass player.
Yeah.
And you learn the chords and then the sort of little motifs of that genre, and maybe come up with something on your own. But I forgot what the question was, to be quite honest.
No, it's all right. I think that's pretty much everything then, to be honest with you.
It's been a pleasure talking to you three.
Yes, same with you. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast as well. We really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I really enjoyed the questions. I thought they were really specific and relevant. Yeah.
No, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Take
care, Michael.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, man.
That was episode 14 with former bassist of Jeff Buckley's band, Michael Grøndahl.
And thanks again to Mike for joining us in conversation about the recording of Grace and giving us a bit more information and stories as well behind it.
Don't forget, if you enjoyed that episode, make sure you check out our previous episodes on whatever digital platform you find us on, varying from different music experiences with different guests or just general discussions between us.